Hello. Welcome to the Matt Files, episode 104, coming at you from the Ogikubo studio in Tokyo, Japan. This is the podcast that broadcasts Tokyo subculture. The freaks and weirdos, a lot of them in the music scene. Come on the podcast and we talk. Sometimes it's philosophical, sometimes it's really stupid. Sometimes it's somewhere in between your toes, snuggling in there. That forbidden knowledge, you know it's in there. You know there's something between your toes. You could dig in there and find something new. But most of the time we ignore those hidden secrets. Our body knowledge. We ignore that body knowledge. We could take the extra time. Most of the time when we do scrub down there, it's with some sort of net. And we take that net and we wash the forbidden knowledge away without even looking at it. Well, on this podcast, we gather everyone's toe jam and we spread it on a nice piece of podcasting toast and send it into the interwebs to fly through the toaster that cooks the toe jam into some sort of forbidden knowledge that is easily consumable for those who are looking. If you are looking, look no further, because now you are here in podcasting world with Toe Jam as an example of the forbidden knowledge that you know is out there, but most of the time would rather not think about it. Discipline. I'm into discipline again. Discipline is back. Gym, drumming, guitar, vocals, podcasting. If you don't have discipline and you only rely on inspiration, you're going to be doing a lot of prayer, but little action. You're going to be praying without your shovel. The discipline is the shovel. I hit the gym today, made breakfast, practiced guitar. I'm doing a podcast now. I'm going on to a show tonight. The Beach House, I think it's called, with Takashi Umemiya. His band's been on this podcast. We're doing a little back and forth, a little share, a little yin and yang, a little spinning out and spinning in, taking a look at the forbidden knowledge within the yin and the yang, the black eye and the white teardrop, and the white eye and the black teardrop. We're folding the yin and yang in half. And when those two eyes meet up, that's where I belong in Takashi Umemiya's show, The Beach House. After that, tomorrow, I'm going to be doing recording with the Dead Sea Dropouts. We're doing it ourselves. Discipline. It's going to be hard. There's going to be mistakes. It's not going to be perfect, but I must accept the consequences and do better next time. I'm not going to do this thing where I get a millennial with an iPad to do some tracks that repeat themselves in perfect timing with perfect leveling based on iTunes preferences. I'm not doing it. It's too much of a safe space. I don't believe in safe spaces. If you have discipline, you can cope with these screwballs that come at you in life. If you have discipline, you know when to block, you know when to charge. You're ready. You've spent time in the studio. You've spent time in the gym. You've been practicing touching your toes, not so that you can walk around like a fucking idiot, but that so when that fastball comes, you know when to duck and duck quickly and come back up with your breathing steady, eyes focused, rolling with the punches, and ready to somersault your way through the ether. And keeping an eye on that goal, that ever-reaching goal, like some wild game of thermal chess, where you look at the world with a thermal camera, and you see the heat signatures, and you see the pathways, and the thermal camera is so advanced, you could see the footprints left behind by people's heat signatures, and say, that's a shoe I would like to have. Today's guest is Michael Uhlman. He's also known as BlipPilot. He does a lot of electronic music. But as we talk about it, he's been around the block a few times. He's no spring chicken. You know, he has a couple of love bites taken out of his trek through life. He's walking around with some scars. And he talks about the progression of music through the decades and how electronica music changes. Now he has to keep his discipline rolling and shaking to find a way through so that we don't get overwhelmed and do this lame-ass fucking thing called quitting. You know how easy it would be to quit? Just to throw in the towel and say, I think I'm just going to go watch TV for the rest of my life. Oh, really? Okay. All right. See ya. Take it easy. You know? Oh, you're not making a huge amount of money? Well, that sucks. It does. I would love to be making tons of money doing this, but I'm not. And if I was, I might be making some money, but it wouldn't be doing it with the way I talk, which is why I'm doing this. To express myself. I don't know why, but everyone listens to radio programs and everyone watches TV, and everybody likes to watch and listen to these things. It just depends on where it lands, and you have to accept the consequences and move forward. We recorded this podcast in the park. Beautiful evening. And we talk about the situation of music. And from there, we take a look at how to locate ourselves and move on with a straight face, our eyes up, our focus on what's happening next. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoy. We're going to be playing some music by BlipPilot. Just waiting for him to send me a track. Then boom, drop that track in, upload the podcast, and off we go. Toe jam, toasted toe jam. The ether is the toaster. The toe jam is the forbidden fruit. And the heat is the podcast player that cooks the forbidden toe jam knowledge into bite-sized morsels of entertainment. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Matt Bigelow, coming at you from the Ogikubo studio, where indeed I am on my tatami mats, and indeed the sun is filtering in. Sometimes I get really riled up before I do these things, and I'm ready to come in and be like Alex Jones, be like, why don't they listen to the... But then I'm in this nice peaceful studio, and I got these tatami mats, and the sun is flowing in. I'm like, ooh, I'm feeling a little zen-like right now. A little, yakushitsu, some sort of poet. A silent room. A silent room is one thing I've always wanted. And now that I have it, I talk inside of it. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you on the flip side. So, what should we call you in this podcast? Like, what name do you want to go by?
Well, my
Because sometimes
name's,
people have like a name that they would
a
rather
pseudonym.
not use.
Well, I've got both. I'm Michael A. Yeomans, and I'm also known as BlipPilot, which is a name I use for an electronic music project that I've got going, or have had going since 2001.
And this is, we don't really know each other.
Right.
So, have you been constantly gigging, or are you someone like me that kind of gigs a lot and then takes a break and then gigs again, or what's up?
Yeah, that's more of the latter, I think. I used to play live quite regularly, but in recent times it's sort of spending more time in the studio, recording, writing, and putting together music videos and things for release. But I do like to play live. It's just a lot of work in order to do so.
Yeah, as an independent, I've talked a lot about this, especially in Tokyo. It's not very friendly. I have this theory, actually, that the live houses in Tokyo specifically are more concerned about their sound staff. I have this idea that there's a huge amount of recording schools, learn to become an engineer, audio engineer schools.
Like Muse Studio and stuff like that.
And these people need to provide their students with a hopeful job at the end of the day. So if you graduate from as an audio engineer and you don't have a job, then that school isn't going to get its students, and then the live houses aren't going to get their sound engineers.
Yeah.
And in Tokyo, everybody has to be super professional all the time. So I think that we're always working with these really hyperly trained engineers that are more guarding their own industry, and they use bands as a way to bring people into their industry. So they're not working for us, we're kind of working for them. That's how I feel about it.
Kind of feels, a lot like that with especially the live houses. But you get the occasional small little club, like the Gamuso and other places where it's, where the artists have a scene that goes on, and it's all about what the artists can bring to the club as well, and what they can, what they can show and enjoy, rather than just sitting back and letting the engineers have their way.
The spirit of Gamuso is really reciprocal.
Yes.
Like you walk in, it's like, what do you bring? That's what you get.
Yeah.
And come again. Whereas sometimes live houses feel like this sort of weird, hyper-professional, there is no fun here. We are robots.
Yeah, it does feel a bit like that. And they're very by the book when it comes to actually mixing bands or musicians live, the way they go about it. They don't actually try different things out, or it's just very by the book, as you said, by numbers.
By the numbers, by the book, by the book's numbers, by the numbers of the book. I feel that way too, and it's Japan is like that as a society overall. So I'm not too surprised that that's the ship we find ourselves in. And I'm similar to you, where when you publish online, you're just like, oh, I get it out there. People download it immediately, and you have a much easier way to access listeners.
Yeah.
Instead of the live house approach. But I agree that I've talked about this a lot in previous podcasts, but doing the cafe route, past the hat, street festivals, things like that.
Yeah, kind of small
I've done
scale.
pretty well. But as soon as you try to make a live house like a rock venue, ultimate rock venue, you're kind of overstepping your boundaries a little bit,
Yeah, plus, my primary instruments are synthesizers and electronic music, drum machines and sequencers and analog synths and stuff. And for me to set up live is quite a challenge, because I've got loads of machines to set up, sync up, and have those all running through a mixing desk. So it's kind of like a one-man band, but with a lot of toys.
Right.
So it's time-consuming. It takes a lot of time to program, backing for live performance as well, and then practice, and then shipping the gear around the city. You've got the transport costs, time, energy, and then you've got to put in a good performance at the end of it, and hope that there's also an audience there who appreciate it.
Yeah. I really admire stand-up comedians. They just fly in wearing a T-shirt, go up on stage. It's one microphone. I mean, like the sound engineers just, there's like, okay, I'm going to increase the volume on one microphone, add a little reverb, and we're done. Whereas getting drums set up alone and then miking them,
that's
and then
hard.
it compounds on top of that.
Especially, acoustic kits and things. But, it's...
That is what it is. So when did you start publishing digitally? Online, I mean.
Online, I say from about 2002, 2001, 2002.
That's crazy. I just thought of this.
That was with mp3.com when that first came out.
Online is a different form than digital, isn't it? We have analog, digital, and online. I've never considered online as separate from digital because CDs are digital.
Yes.
So interesting to consider that online publishing is not digital publishing. It's a completely different format of entertainment. Okay, anyways, that just came to me. And mp3.com, and what was it like at that time?
Everything was very heavily compressed because you used to have to send the tracks down the phone line, basically. To upload them and stuff, so it was time consuming.
That was before ADSL cables.
Yeah,
wow.
It's a long time before. So I was doing that then. Before that, I was doing CDs, and before that, I was doing vinyl.
Have some
cassettes.
more sparkling wine in the park.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's quite nice and pleasant, actually, that drink.
I'm into sparkling wine these days. I don't know why. You know what it goes really well with?
Right.
Niku Jaga.
Yeah, I can add the meat and the potatoes.
And barbecue. If you're at a barbecue and you got like really crisp sparkling wine, you're cooking with fire. and then that was in 2002. Did you find that? What was the response to videos like back then, or what did you get?
I made my videos much later.
Okay, what was the response to audio at that time? Would you get like a lot of kind of fringe, crazy internet
I had
people?
A couple of actual mp3.com chart hits that actually reached like I think the top 3 hit with a track called Wave, which was
just Google that one.
Just Google that one, yeah. And there's various mixes, and the mixes were done by a band called Superluminal, which is some friends of mine in England. One guy used to play with Alison Moyet, and another guy used to play in a band with me many years ago. But they did remixes and stuff, and they remixed the version and put it out, and it did really well.
And this, were you doing synthesizers, or were you mixing?
I was still on synthesizers,
okay.
And I was still spending time in the studios. So we used a mixture of synthesizers and guitars for that one, electric guitars, which we then created loops with and then put those into the mix. John Lewis was one of the guys that did the mix. He's a great guitarist, and his ideas were really, really good, very fresh, very tight, and just the right thing for the right mix. So,
what kind of influence did he have?
Those days, it was kind of described as a mixture of like KLF meets Depeche Mode meets, I don't know, Led Zeppelin. It was kind of a right old mix.
Okay. So this wasn't like super fast digital music. It was more of...
It was all analog based.
Analog based? Did it have like a house feel to it at all, or?
I'd say it had a big beat sound to it. But it was more anthem-esque in its sound. It was just very big.
Yeah.
But even
sometimes
in those
when
days,
people hear like synthesizer music, they just hear like...
Yeah, electro. You can get all those kind of like Kraftwerky kind of sounds. But I try to make things a bit more interesting. And yeah, I mean, in those days, 2002, it was still, CDs were still selling.
Yes.
And downloads were still very new.
Downloads was,
how it was going. But
downloads was like a subset of CDs. It was like, and in addition, you can download one of our MP3s from our website for free.
Yeah.
But you really want the real thing, which is a CD. Now nobody gives a shit about CDs.
No,
they pretend. Right. They pretend, but they don't. By and large, they don't.
Yeah.
Musicians do, maybe like serious fans of music do, but I ask a lot of people, my students that I teach at a tech company, and most of my students, like AI engineers and things like that, I ask them about their music habits, and like I haven't fucking thought about a CD in years.
Yeah.
And they're very specialist people, but they also represent the general public from the point of music consumption is concerned, right? Software engineers, just like these people that aren't connected to the music industry, but probably want music in their life in some way. And when I ask them about it, they're just like, oh yeah, I haven't even thought about, like I ask people, when was the last time you went CD player shopping? Or when was the last time you went into a store and thought about the CD section and went, oh, I wonder if they have like these dual multi-tracker CD player. Yeah, oh, I really want a 50-disc one. Like that used to be a big idea, but it's not anymore. It's fringe culture at this point, in my opinion.
I guess, and I suppose if you went to Akihabara up to Electric Town, you could probably pick one up there, but it probably costs you quite a bit now, I imagine, because they don't make that many of them.
You can find freaks of anything.
Yeah.
So to say it's there, okay, but to say that it's viable is another thing. So so this was back in were you living in Japan at that time? Were you?
Yes, I was already back here by then. I came back here 2001. I mean, I've been coming and going for years. And so I'm back now and been back since 2001. Continued doing music, obviously, through that period, and just watched the general changeover of the trend from CDs to downloads.
Where do you? How would you summarize this shift?
Summarize.
Yeah, I'm into summaries these days because it's an analytical thought process.
Yeah, it's a kind of thing it's taken a lot of getting used to, because you always thought before that everything was a product that was manufactured, was sold, was a physical product.
Yes.
So you had vinyl, obviously back in the 70s and 80s, and
still to this day,
it's kind of made like a little bit of a comeback.
It's there. It's the physical subset.
And you had cassettes, which people bought to put in on their car radio players, and then a CD, which is also a physical product. But now with the downloads and stuff, it's just a virtual product that you're downloading onto your little, I don't know, nano player.
It's streaming as well.
You're streaming as well, and
the technology is fucking fantastic.
It is, and
it's hard to keep up with it though as a musician. That's the thing.
Yes, it is. I think.
I'm sorry. You're supposed to be summarizing.
Oh,
I just stepped on your summary. That's so rude. I apologize, and I'll try not to step on your summary again.
No problem.
So.
Yeah, obviously before we had physical products, but now it's, like you said, it's streamed, it's virtual. The other thing is it doesn't make as much money. Before, if you sold an album, you had a fixed price to sell an album. Now people might download just one track or certain tracks, which is great for the consumer, but it's not that great for the artist, I'd say, probably. And I'm still waiting to see how things develop from now onwards, whether this is going to be well, nothing's permanent, but what the next big thing is going to be. Yeah,
the streaming aspect. I've been releasing these jam casts. If I had more time, I'd be doing more of them.
Yeah,
if I had enough time to do like 3 a week, I would with camera.
Right,
that would be great. One thing though that a lot of the online streaming lacks is people use smartphones, which is great for video quality and voice, but as soon as you put a drummer in the room, it turns to dog shit. And there's so much good quality spoken audio being released at the moment that unless your music has some sort of professional quality to it, you can lose out to somebody with like just like us, like a microphone in a park, because the technology is really adapted well for voice, but maybe not so much music.
Yeah, I mean, I had a chat the other day with a friend of mine who's in another project.
Summary again.
The summary?
I thought you were done your summary.
Yeah, pretty much on that. But I was talking to a friend the other day who's in another band with me called Ferrograph Tape Machine. And we were saying that how do you measure success in this current time and climate?
Yeah.
And we were saying, do you measure it financially? Do you measure it in terms of fame? Do you measure it in terms of quantity? Do you measure it in terms of quality?
Followers, view
counts. It could be followers,
it
could be downloaders, it could be anything.
Yeah.
And I kind of
platform.
Well, he was saying it was kind of
Some
difficult
video
to
on
justify.
Facebook can get 12 million views, but 3,000 on YouTube. Which one do you go with?
Well, exactly. I mean, you can get that 3 million views could be for a little kitten caught up a tree, whereas, you know, if a serious musician might put something up that you love, and yet, you know, they love it, but then, you know, well, it's just the way things are, I think. With
I think it's important for musicians to really figure this shit out. And I've been doing this podcast for about 2 years now.
Yes.
And the story you're saying is a story I've heard very frequently.
Yes.
And it's across ages, across nationalities, across styles of music. Except for a couple of bands. Some bands that model themselves on video game style music tend to do well.
Right.
Because video game music is actually very sophisticated. And gamers, I think, these days are listening to some of the top-notch music being released out there. We were just talking before we started recording about how a lot of popular music in hip-hop and R&B is very mixed down. It has 3 or 4 tracks, it sounds like, and it's on a loop, and it's not very creative. But you put on a video game, and you got like stereo, surround sound, orchestra, the top of the top musicians all over the world. So I think right now in the gaming industry, people who are gamers are the ones that are on the receiving end of the best music quality being released to popular audiences.
Right. Yeah. It definitely has changed. I mean, the demographics of it. When I was younger, especially when I was like a teenager with my first band and things, it was all about playing live, building up an audience, releasing material or recording demos, then releasing material and stuff, and you just built it up that way. And it was you had to tour, play gigs, you know, get on the radio, get on interviews. Blah,
there was
blah,
an
blah.
infrastructure.
There was, and it was a standard pattern that worked for everyone and had done for, you know, decades.
Yeah, 100 years almost.
Kind of, in some ways.
Yeah, because you had like in the late 1800s radios. So people would have radios and their wireless, as it was called, and they would gather around the wireless.
Yeah, the first record player, the first, you know, gramophone, I think they called them then.
And that technology was the reason why 3-minute songs were created.
Yes.
Because before that, you would have symphonies playing hour-long in these chambers,
yeah,
you know?
chamber
but then
orchestras.
It moved to a 3-minute maximum recording on one vinyl. But then as the technology increased and you could put 12 times the length of music on it, people just started making more 3-minute songs instead of 45-minute songs. So that was the technology that created the 3-minute song. It wasn't the musician that created the 3-minute song. It was the limit of the technology. And we need to start considering these days.
Yeah.
How is the streaming, what are the limitations? Like there's almost no limitations. Like,
I'd imagine not nowadays, no. But I think the listener, do they have the, you know, can they concentrate long enough on something to appreciate it and enjoy it rather than something that's instantaneous, throwaway, bland, devoid of feeling, soulless? I mean, do I go on with the list?
Have you seen the Instagram models these days?
No.
The Instagram models are out of this world. They're so hot. And you can just scroll their videos of them walking around and exercising, and they're fucking beautiful, and they're out for the likes. So if there's like an 18-year-old dude, and I'm like, hey, man, why don't you listen to my folk music? And he's like, dude, have you seen these Instagram models? Like, of course I fucking lose. Imagine being 18 years old and having access to all of the hottest women in the world ever on your phone in video and in audio. And not audio, but in video and in photo form.
Well, they always say sex sells, so.
Jesus Christ.
But I haven't stooped down to that lowness in my videos, so I'm fine. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet. Yeah. Well, anyways, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to be heading off again to the US this summer to do some more video work, actually, so that should be fun.
What kind of video work are you doing?
Just video work for the music that I'm producing, really. I've been doing it last 18 months, I guess.
So another flip side to this advance in technology is that people like you and me can get high-quality cameras at reasonable prices and make...
Exactly. I mean, up until I bought my iMac, I had a PC which had editing software on there, but I just couldn't get to grips with it. And since I bought my iMac and got into iMovies,
So easy.
so easy, user-friendly, and since then I've been able to be creative, and it's just merged and married with the music quite nicely. So I just keep disappearing off to new locations to try and film some more ideas.
Well, I did. You had me on your Gamaso TV program.
Yes.
And I had a little chat. We had a little
With Sean,
with Sean. Well, yeah. And you were showing some of your music videos of you being in like these crazy locations in Arizona or Idaho, like on these old ranches. And how can you talk about
the
finding
videos,
locations? And
yeah,
video work?
Obviously I've done some in Tokyo because it's local, and Yokohama. But other ones I filmed in Miami on the Ocean Drive on the beachfront there, which was quite exotic and nice in the sunshine. Cheers.
Oh, cheers. Yeah, you bet.
And then I videoed in Colorado, up in the mountains and the Rockies, and out in the desert of Utah.
Mm-hmm.
And this summer I'll be heading off to Arizona and New Mexico.
These are cool locations.
Yeah.
What was Utah like? Did you like it?
I went to southeast Utah, so it was Canyonlands
Okay.
and Arches National Park,
Yeah.
near Green River Valley, and I found it, to be honest, very breathtaking.
I hear that I'm from the Rocky Mountain and coastal area of BC, so it's very majestic, but it's a very different style of scenery that they got going on in Utah.
Yeah, oh, different completely, and it's very dry, very barren, very desolate, obviously, and it's kind of a bit garish as well. You know, it's very full on visually. It kind of attacks your senses because it's so garish and so bright.
Like, you mean like this is a super blue sky and this is a yellow field? Is that what you mean?
Kind
like
of. The canyons are very striking. So all the rocks and shapes just sort of are very. They basically attack your eyes. You know, there's just so much you can see, and it's so crystal clear. It's quite impressive.
Have you heard about the idea that that barren landscape was created by a comet hitting the Canadian glacier 12,000 years ago, and it like melted this massive glacier covering the Canadian landscape, and it just sent billions of tons of water surging through areas of Utah and creating all this crazy landscape.
Yeah, doesn't surprise me. I mean, Arizona and Death Valley were actually seabeds and the base of oceans.
Yeah.
Millions of years ago. So, yeah, it's just fascinating to think that when you're there, because it's just so opposite when obviously because it's a desert and it's so dry and hot. And but it's beautiful as well. It really is. It's just my kind of place. I wouldn't mind moving there.
Yeah, getting out of the Tokyo scene.
Eventually.
How often do you make videos, and how long does it take to make them?
I make them every time I need one done for a track, but the most difficult thing is sitting down and coming up with an idea for it. I've got all the techniques and the technology and everything else at my disposal to use. It's just whether I get a good idea or not. But yeah, quite often, maybe 4 or 5 videos a year, perhaps.
Okay, sure. What kind of cameras are you using?
I'm using a Sony Handy Cam and a Canon EOS with the video function, and a iPhone 6 Plus. So I'm using 3 different cameras, and I can flip between the 3 of them.
Interesting.
And edit up different,
How
clips.
does the iPhone camera compare to the other ones?
The camera itself, I think the iPhone is probably the better of the 3.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It is. It's crystal clear. It's absolutely crystal clear. But the sound on it I don't find too clever.
No, which goes back to what we were saying
Yeah.
before about the idea of sound with this visual technology.
But for just visual clips that I use it for, it's perfect.
Yeah, we're in a dark park right now, but if we used your iPhone 6, we'd probably get a pretty good image. I'm still on my iPhone 5, And if I use the camera here, which we're going to do, it's going to come out grainy, which you can use for certain things, which is fine. But the jump from the 5 camera to the 6 camera is incomparable.
Well, I imagine with the new ones come out, they're going to be even better, I guess.
There are the latest Samsung phones, the latest Galaxy ones. Their low light resolution, as well as like dynamic color capture quality. It would take a professional photographer like $8,000 to $10,000 worth of equipment,
right,
to pull that off 10 years ago. But now it's just some like teenager with walking around taking pictures of balloons.
Balloons.
Yeah. Is that a cigarette?
Yeah, if you want one.
I'm okay, actually. But go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Make my day.
Go ahead. Smoke it up.
Skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
And when you can light up, I'll cover for you. I'll cover for you, bro.
All right.
So you're behind this 6 videos a year. How long does it take to make one video?
Put together.
Because you got to go on location. You got to listen to helicopters.
Yeah, as you can hear the special effects department in the background. They're bringing in the SWAT team.
I'd rather they bring in the beer team. They were just flashing their spotlight at us. What are we doing? We're not doing anything.
Never mind, it's probably Steven's cigar.
Do you think that they have advanced RFID technology and they're able to register a certain amount of digital frequency happening on this picnic table, and they send over a helicopter to check us out?
Yes.
Okay, point proven.
Where were we?
You were talking about the process.
Videos.
Yeah,
that's
6
right.
videos a year.
If I make a video, I'll go out, obviously get the clips. The more clips and footage you've got, the better. So if you can take 300 or 400 clips and then bring that back, you'll edit it up into one video, and you'll probably discard 60-70% of it.
Yeah.
But you'll still have loads of nice clips to use, and you'll get the best selection, and then you can start editing up on the software. And take me maybe 3 days. Yeah, about 3 days, maybe 7 hours each day.
You just dive in.
Just dive in. Once I've got an idea, I'm on a roll. I'll just keep it going
Yeah.
until it's finished. Obviously, take breaks, come back to it, have a look. Does that look
Sure.
right? Maybe I might change that, blah, blah. Until I'm happy with it, really. But as I said, it's a new thing I've been into the last 18 months. So I'm hoping to just get better and better at it the more I do it.
I find a lot of people are adapting to the new technology with being creative, but a new type of creativity. Like, we're interfacing with the digital technology more instead of using the digital technology to promote our analog technology.
Yes.
Actually, I should even say it this way. We're using our online technology to promote our digital art.
Yes.
Rather than using our digital art to promote our analog art.
Yes. I mean, the other thing about
it is a rapid succession of technology being released.
And the other thing about modern, with using the internet and modern technology, is that I've got a lot of listeners around the world, but I don't know who they are.
Yeah, I see the IP addresses of people who download this podcast, and I'm like,
yeah, I've got people in Brazil, US, Europe.
I'm seeing Alexa now on the way to listen as well. So somebody found this podcast by asking Alexa to play a podcast.
That's cool.
Yeah, but it's very strange. How did Alexa know to pick this podcast? Unless, because is there someone that's really into this podcast? We're like, Alexa, please play Matty B files. Oh, I should do that all the time. Then my download numbers are going to go up in case somebody's listening to this on speaker.
But it's like you said, like
Alexa, play Matty B files. Sorry, what were you going to say?
I was just saying, like, going back to when I first started years ago when I was a teenager. You built up a local following, so you kind of knew a lot of the people that listened to your music. You actually knew them. You met them at the gigs. You went out and chatted after them. And it built from the centre and then worked its way out. So it would start off in your local area, and then it would become sort of more regional and national from that point.
Like a city.
This is the complete opposite. You put something out, and I've got people listening from completely the opposite side of the globe who I've never met before and probably never will.
Yeah.
That's appreciating it. So I've got a wider range of audience, but it feels weird because I don't have that direct contact with them.
I agree. And if you grew up with this technology we're talking about, that's going to probably feel
That's
totally
different.
normal to you.
Yes.
But we're coming at it like I always consider myself kind of between the millennial generation and Gen X.
Right.
Because I was born in about 1980, actually exactly 1980.
Okay.
And so my childhood was analog, but my adulthood is digital.
Right.
So-
I was born in '65, so I'm what's called the last of the baby boomers after the war. So I'm
Is that
I'm
really-
53 years old. So
53 years old.
yeah, and I've been playing synthesizers and electronics since '81.
I've noticed that a lot more baby boomer types are adapting more easily to this technology than these baby boomer types were adapting to PC technology. So the ease of access with apps and streaming and things like that is so much easier than
But I think
PC.
the technology has become a lot more user-friendly now
Yeah.
towards people like myself. Whereas when
Yeah.
it first came out, it was kind of, you had to sit down. If you wanted to make a website, you had to learn all the coding behind it before you could put the damn thing together.
And if you look at Silicon Valley tech conferences like 10 years ago, it's a lot
Yeah.
of young people in hoodies.
Yeah.
But now in the audiences, it's just full of baby boomers holding up their iPads recording the entire thing.
Yeah. And
Crazy.
That's cool.
Sure, it's fine. It is what it is. Yeah, it totally is. It's simply that. It is what it is. It's a dynamic change, though.
The other thing with me is that people say, "Why do you do this?" And I say, "I do it for me. I do it because I love doing it and because I enjoy it." And that's really the bottom line. I don't care whether it becomes mega successful or not, or even slightly successful. I enjoy it. It's a way of expressing myself, how I feel, and what I experience through life. And
Does anyone ever ask you, why do you do this?
some people do. I have had, and I've had some hilarious comments after gigs. I mean, I played one gig, I think it was at the Gamuso, maybe about 10 years ago. And I played a gig, and it was packed out. Loads of people came, and all enjoyed it. This Japanese lady come up to me afterwards, and she said, "Oh, I loved your gig. I don't understand any of it, but I loved it." So I'm thinking, what on earth was that all about? So, yeah.
They're such Japanese people in general are so formal
Yeah.
that like if I say otsukare-sama desu, you say otsukare-sama desu.
Yeah.
If I say otsukare-sama desu, you don't say otsukare. Like you don't have your way of saying this. So it's such a systematic society that when people come in like with this alternative way of connecting A to D to B and then to C again.
Yeah.
They're like, what? It's supposed to be A, B, C, D, but you did A, D, B, C?
Yeah.
What? Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing is where I'm
Which is fine.
coming from a different generation. I've grown up with different kinds of music, so the influences have been different because there've been more of them.
Are you influenced by any music these days?
Current stuff.
Yeah. Have you listened to something in the past few years where you're like, oh, I'm going to listen to this and my friends are going to listen to this too?
Yeah, some bands I've come across that I think, yeah, that's kind of cool. But most of those bands have a retro kind of sound. So it's nothing fresh or new in that sense. It's just a kind of a reminder of something that was good before when I was younger listening to something. But I still use...
Even though you play these modern instruments called synthesizers.
Yeah, well, they say modern. They've been around for quite some time
Yeah.
now. But, yeah, I mean, I still listen to all different eras of music, all the way back to the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. You'll find good in every decade. And I'll just find stuff that I like and think, oh, that's clever. Oh, let's hark back to this period. That hasn't been done for a long time. And maybe mix that with something else that hasn't been done for a long time.
So
Yeah.
with like 50s, 30s, we had big band swing. 50s, we had beat music. 60s kind of saw rock and roll. 70s, 80s. 80s was, 70s, 80s disco. 90s grunge. 2000s was maybe it begins to fade for me. And
Yeah.
then recently it's, I don't know. So is music full for now, or what's going to be the next thing? Like, do you see this going anywhere?
No, it seems at the moment I don't see anything fresh. But so when I was growing up in the 70s, I mean, we had different trends. So right at the beginning of the 70s, you had things like the tail end of 60s ska, and then you had psychedelic rock, which was still floating around. Then you had glam rock.
I'm getting back into psychedelic rock. And I release it sometimes.
Glam rock came along then, which was the 3-minute wonder song just thrashed out on a guitar. You know, you had like T-Rex and Slade and obviously David Bowie and the like that were producing this wonderful music. And then after that, it kind of settled into disco, I think, and funk. And then punk came along and just blew everything out of the water, 76, and made a mess of everything. And then that sort of settled down into new wave and post-punk and gothic and other stuff that came out of that. And so there were genres coming out all the time. Something new was always coming along.
Yeah.
Extensions of things that had been done, but it was always interesting. I think we were spoiled for music, my generation. I think we had good music,
totally
and we got too used to it.
Yeah,
and now it's like, where's it all gone?
Well, it's this idea that it's everybody's. The new medium. I think is not conducive to that style of music.
Well, the industry's changed now. It's all about making a quick buck. It's all about these talent shows. You know, people just come on because they want to be famous. They're not putting in the hard graft, which is getting out there, learning their craft, learning how to sing, learning how to play, learning how to songwrite, produce, get out there, do it properly.
I've always found that weird that it's often like men about your age. I'm not including you in this group,
right.
But it's men about your age that are really spending all of their music budget on idol groups.
Oh God, yeah,
it's a very strange thing. Like these men are not promoting, they're not helping out actual bands. They're going for like this really base idol group music, and if there wasn't a music video, they wouldn't be interested.
No, it's just a pretty face.
Yeah, so I wonder why so many of these men that grew up with all this great music are now just kind of throwing in the towel. Any thoughts about that from your side of the aisle?
Well, back in the UK and in the States, I've seen people my age, they still listen to good music, or they miss that music. I think the idol pop stuff is more kind of, I see it in Japan quite a lot, but I think Japanese men are kind of a little bit... It's got a fetish for young girls, so I think that kind of panders to their wants and needs and demands. I don't know if it's going to last, or whether people just get sick of it and then something else will come along, but I can't see what else will come along. I don't even know if we've done everything.
Yeah.
If it's all been done and now it's just a case of regurgitating things, which will be sad.
We are in a stage of regurgitation. I would say that. Right now, I think a lot of country music and folk music in central the United States of America is doing quite well. Because they have more of a robust culture that they don't change so frequently.
No, country's always going to be country, and you're going to get your country fans. It's an established major genre in the States, just as blues is, I guess, as well, and jazz and the like.
Jazz is kind of fading out, I think. I think jazz is done.
It'll make a comeback.
I wonder. So how do you think we can use this new technology to create new music, a new form, stream form? So, because we're still locked in the idea of music as physical product with copyright laws and radio rights. I want to get to the point where all of that is thrown down the garbage chute into an incinerator.
Right.
I think the music laws are very prohibitive for music being promoted in this new medium sense. So how do we get music in, how do we, like how, to use a horrible example, Vladimir Lenin said, I think I'm going to pull Russia by the chains into the 20th century or something like that.
Screaming,
kicking, yeah. bunch of pitchfork-wielding farmers.
I'm not sure if the ground's settled yet on how things are going to go from now. So
or has it already been decided that we're just going to listen to simple 4 tracks on, these simple R&B videos that get played in grocery stores, while all of the main music gets played in advanced video games or something like that?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. The medium has changed. I mean, you're still going to get some of it on television and on radio, of course. You get in the States, I don't know about here, probably not so much here, but in the States and in the UK, you get the generic radio. So, Colorado, there's hippie radio, which plays 60s and 70s only music. Then you get other channels that only play 80s, or another channel that only play electro, or another channel that only play country. So you get, genre-specific stations which will promote those things.
Yeah.
But I don't know if anything's going to specifically change.
Do you think what I'm saying is accurate, or do you think what I'm saying has like a very negative, a gloomy feel to it? Like, because I'm looking for people to like say, "Hey, Matt, fuck you, you're wrong."
I know what you mean, but to be honest, I'm kind of a bit the same as yourself. I think of it in I'm not overly happy the way things have 100% gone. But I can't quite put my finger on one thing that makes me unhappy about it. And it's probably a selection of different things and points. But, yeah, it's definitely changed. And it's something I'm still struggling to adapt to. But I'm making efforts. And I sound like an old bastard on here tonight, don't I?
Well, that's exactly it. Like, we're really risking of sounding that way. And I wonder if we're in a transitionary period and there needs to be people holding on to the form and spreading that form in order for it to carry forward, which might make me sound like a psychotic egomaniac because I'm protecting this form. But people need to carry the form forward because music needs to be carried forward. And then when the pendulum swings back towards music, there's going to be a record of that music.
Might come down to a certain amount of self-marketing, and obviously how you market yourself, because now you have more control over what you do.
What as a gloomy podcaster? Is that a good way to market myself?
No.
Oddly enough, I'm only gloomy when I just think about the current status of music.
I think, years ago you used to go to a record company with a demo. They would pick you up, re-record it, put it out, and they would support you, and that would be your route into finding, your audience and listeners. Record companies now, they just don't get many indie labels anymore. It's all the majors that are left have now shifted with the download business, and you have to promote yourself now. I think, which is you've got a lot of control over what you do, but at the same time you've got to know what you're doing in order to get it out there as well. I think
it's a good point. It's a good point. Yeah. We've got to adapt.
When I left school, I went to school with three people that went on to become quite famous. Alison Moyet went on to be in a band called Yazoo, and Yaz, I think they were called in America, and a solo career now. And Depeche Mode were also 2 members of that band were in my school.
Oh, really?
I knew one of them okay, but fairly well. But the other one I only knew a little bit because he lived next door to my best friend. But they went through that route. Got picked up by a small indie label called Mute and put some records out, and the rest is history, as they say.
The infrastructure.
Yeah, and they went out and toured, and they built up a local following, and everyone else kind of followed suit and started doing the same kind of thing. And that's how you made it, or at least built up your following and reputation.
Yeah, man. Is there other topics you'd like to talk about?
I don't know, you could go with musical influences or styles or...
Let's do that.
Or instrumentation. Or...
Yeah, okay. Well, we have topic A, styles, influences, topic B, and topic C, instrumentation. Well, I'm actually very curious about instrumentation.
Okay. Synthesizer is obviously my primary instrument. A friend of mine introduced me to a synthesizer back in 1981. He invited me back to his house, showed me his synths. I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant, I've got to have one. So I went and bought one, and then we just started jamming together. playing music and enjoying it, and went from there. Really started, bought a drum machine, bought a sequencer, bought some effects, bought another synth, and before you knew it, we had a band going with various instrumentation. But it was all electronic, and in those days it was all pre-MIDI, and it was analog.
It was analog electronic.
Yes, it was mainly control voltage, CV gate controlled. So it was all the machines were talking to each other using CV gate.
What's CV gate?
Control voltage. It's basically a signal that's sent from one machine to the other to trigger it in time. Everyone uses MIDI now, musical instrument digital interface, but CV gate actually is a tighter form of connection and will have your beats tighter than MIDI. MIDI has a slight delay the more you build up the tracks. You'll start to get very, very, very slight latency in there.
Well, then why was MIDI adapted? Just cheaper?
You could do a lot more with it at the time because CV gate, the manufacturers organised it so that only Moogs would work with Moogs, or Korgs would only work with Korgs, and Rolands would only work with Rolands. However, my band got around that problem. We built a interface box which would switch the signal from one machine to the other, so we could, have a Roland running with a drumulator running with a Korg. So
very clever.
Built it inside a Tupperware box.
That's so cool, man.
Transparent box with all these wires and cables and various colours inside it.
You hacked it, basically.
Yeah, basically hacked it. And that was back in 81, 82 when we were doing that.
We were almost like engineers as well as musicians.
We were learning as we were going along. Everything was a learning curve, and still is. But in those days, it was exciting because you'd never... it was new, it was fresh, you'd never done it before.
They tried to stop us, but we found a way around it, man.
Yeah, and we used to play live, and we used to love it because we used to get such a good turnout at the gigs. They were always packed out, and it's just... And the synths, it was... With the synthesizer, we didn't have the computers with us in those days. Well, that was Compu Music. It was hardware-based. So some things could easily go wrong live, can fall out of sync or could detune itself, which happened quite sometimes. To be thumping the top of a synthesizer to get it to fall back in tune again.
To cue its beat?
No, we had two synthesizers called Moog Prodigies, and we had two of them, and we used to nickname them the detune twins. And when they were synced up, you'd wait 30 minutes for the analog components to warm up, and then you would tune them. And then halfway through the gig, the bastards would start to detune. So then you'd come across and thump the top of the synth, and it would then retune itself.
Holy, Russian style. And they wouldn't break.
No, we used to abuse the machines in those days and get the max out of them, because if they didn't, we'd be screwed.
That's hilarious.
But then computers and MIDI came along and things changed and stuff, and But they were fun times. They were really, really good times.
And do you apply that style of instrumentation to what you're doing these days?
I still do. Yeah, still do. Obviously, I've got a lot more control over them now than I had then, and more experience.
But you spend a lot more time with a mouse in your hand and a keyboard instead of like.
Oh no, I'm still playing the synthesizers, and some of them still detune and need a little bit of a thump.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Is a lot of your recording done digitally or analog at first?
Analog at first, and will just be played live.
Oh.
And I would then play around with the synths live as well, and record them and play with them live as they're laid down on the tracks, and then go back and do it again with some other bits. I try to play as much as I can physically myself.
Yeah, me too.
And it gives that human feel, and you don't want everything too perfect, otherwise it takes that human element out of it.
Yeah, I think that I prefer it as well. That one time when the drumsticks click against each other, it adds a dynamic that most people don't even hear, but they kind of register. It's a human,
Just little voices right in the distant background.
Yeah,
picked up on the mic, or
it's somebody breathing. It's an organic thing. So, one thing I'd like to ask you about, especially regarding instrumentation in this digital age, is the idea of EQ
Okay, equalization.
Equalization. In my mind, EQ is becoming more and more important from the point of view of recording engineers. It's like their secret sauce or something like that.
It always has been. It always has been. We used to record everything flat originally, and then during the mixdown, we would then start to work on its EQ and effects and everything else, and how it should sound individually, and then build the tracks up to see how they work. So yeah, it's always been a part of the process.
What?
Oh my!
We got a fun run?
We've got a fun run off to the left there, and it's just like 20
Yeah.
people running. They look like they're topless, but they're not.
A topless fun run's where I want to be.
Oh,
Let me
yeah.
tell you. So when you're considering EQ, equalization, like how important is that in terms of like if you say it's flat from the bottom, so is EQ really important for you?
Oh, it's important for everything, yeah. It can change the whole sound and dynamic of a track.
And what's your EQ process like? What do you do to EQ?
Depends on the instrument in the track to what the EQ setting would be or how you would imagine it to sound. So if it's a bass sound, you obviously want a lot of bottom on it, usually. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes you want a short, clicky bottom end. But sometimes you want a deep bass or a sub bass, and you would work on your EQ on the bottom end and that to make that cut through the mix. If it's something like a guitar that's doing something rhythmic, that might be something more central in a mix. So that would be more of a central middle area of equalization.
So then you cut down the bottom end and the top end.
Yeah, and then with vocals again it would be different, or with guitar top end, like if they're playing a lead or a solo, that would be different again, depending on the effect they're using to what frequencies you'd need. But you don't want to push frequencies too much in one direction because it could then dominate in a mix. So if the bass is too strong, it's just going to thump its way through and cloud everything else. You still want the track to breathe.
Yeah.
To have its space and everything, the little sounds in there, to have their little spaces within that.
How has EQ evolved over the years?
Well, the the band has got wider and wider, and you've got a lot more control over individual sounds. It used to be just 3-point parametry, didn't it? Like bass, middle, and top end, treble.
Yes.
And then you get 3, and then it was 4, and then it was 5. And now you can get like sort of 20 band, 30 band parametric EQ. So, yeah.
Does that make a difference at that range?
Again, it depends what kind of sound you're using it on.
What about for the stuff that you're doing?
Stuff I'm doing, I stick to a basic sort of 3 or 4 wave parameters. So like bass, bottom end, bass, top end, then middle, then top range treble. And just work within that. But most of those EQ knobs and the range of that EQ is quite dramatic.
Are you doing this analogically?
If it's on my analog desk, I am, and I can also do it digitally afterwards as well. So either or both.
Which one do you prefer?
Same.
No difference.
Difference. Maybe the digital one's cleaner. On the analog desk, you've still got noise.
Yeah.
But I like noise. It warms tracks up. You take the noise out, and then it becomes very sterile.
Like a hospital.
Very clinical. It's like that with electronic music. Many years ago, I used to listen to Kraftwerk. And they're very clinical sounding. And yet, another band I listened to from Germany was Tangerine Dream. And their stuff was very warm. And yet they were electronic. So the two types of music were very different, but their approaches were different. And the EQing and the sounds were very different. So it gave a completely different flavour.
As more of a player, I've just gotten into recording recently. This IQ thing, EQ,
Right.
IQ. IQ's it's a motherfucker too.
Quick,
believe
add some
me.
more brains.
Yeah. I need more of that 20K. I need the high end brain. I want some 20K IQ. Give me some of that. But the EQ really is like this thing where it's at first it's a whole different animal, isn't it? It's a weird one to ride.
Yeah, just sit down and work with it and see what comes out. I mean, sometimes you'll isolate a sound, you'll solo it, EQ it, and you'll think that sounds great. But when you bring the rest of the track in, you'll find it's still not right. So I'll EQ it with the track all going together, then solo it and just double check, and then come back in with the main track again, make sure it sits in there.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Anything else on instrumentation?
I've also recorded not just synthesizers. I've had guests that have played guitars, bass, drums, percussion, oboe, saxophone, trumpet, harmonica.
That's a good point. Okay. How would you compare recording like woodwind or trumpet style of instruments to electronic instruments or even electric guitar? Because right now I'm trying to record that band Dead Sea Dropouts, and it's all acoustic. And like the type of noise that these fucking instruments make, like you could just put a microphone up against an electric guitar amp and you get like this really direct signal. But these other instruments are completely I'm not going to use different animal again. It's a completely different cloud to convert into drinkable rainwater.
Yeah, I think with other instruments, I used to mic them up, so it depends on the microphones. You can get instrument recording microphones or general microphones.
Yeah.
Put them on the mic stand, and then with like saxophones, you just have to get the level right so that they're not. Saxophones are very loud to record, by the way. They're really loud. So I usually get them to sit back a little bit, and then I'll adjust the mic to pick up all the frequencies that are coming out the bass of the saxophone itself, and then listen on headphones and check that it's not distorting, and then record it flat and EQ it afterwards. But yeah, most of those instruments, because they're not analog, but because they're acoustic.
Yeah.
It's
it's pre-analog.
Yeah, you just need to record it with a microphone. Make sure you're picking up the sound correctly,
Flat
the frequencies.
sound. So this podcast, we've been able to like identify these different ranges: acoustic, analog, digital, streaming.
There we go.
That's actually very useful to categorize these things in such a manner.
So yeah, that's.
But how is there a big difference for you from like recording him on a woodwind instrument compared to electric guitar compared to a synthesizer?
Yeah, electric guitars and stuff, because you've got outputs, you can DI them, direct input them into a box and record them straight in. So you can pick the signal up and process the signal very easily.
Much easier, isn't it?
It is. But if you've got instruments that don't have any output source, then the only thing you can do is mic them up and find a suitable mic to mic them up with, and then and record them that way. Some instruments are going to be louder than others. So trumpet, I think brass is pretty loud. Woodwind's not too bad. Yeah. So, but if you've got violin, sometimes you can buy violins with output sources built into them to the violin itself. So you can record DI the same as you would a guitar.
I got a nice pencil mic for the violin.
Right.
And I got a ribbon mic for the trumpet. And I got AKG Akage for the clarinet.
Yes.
And so I've been spending a lot of money on microphones.
So you should have everything there to record with, really. It should be very straightforward. So
just this EQ process is like this ghost up my ass.
Record everything flat and then work on it
afterwards. Kicking my balls
afterwards.
from the inside of the nutsack.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because if you record pre-EQ'd, you EQ first and then record, you might come back and think, I didn't want to EQ it that way. Then you have to re-record it.
Yeah.
Then it's a problem. If you record it all flat so that everything is just straight up on the bass and the top and the middle, you can tweak it afterwards and then get the best sound out of it that way, and affect it and do other things.
Cool.
And cut it, edit it, whatever you want to do, reverse it, stick it up someone's jacksy, whatever.
Jacksy. So you mentioned that you're going to Colorado,
Arizona, and New Mexico.
Those places sound awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be different. I'm going to be doing a little bit of a cowboy tour while I'm down there, so I'll be visiting a lot of old western places. Tombstone, the town.
Cool.
Also, John Tunstall's ranch in New Mexico, who was Billy the Kid's boss, who was killed and started off the Lincoln County War. So I'm going to go down there and have a look down there while I'm there.
Why are you interested in this?
It's just historical. It's just fascinating in that sense.
And how are you finding your locations?
I just know them in advance, so I know where these things took place, and I just plan them into an itinerary, and then just go there and take it in. I'll also film while I'm down there as well, as it's historic. So,
Are you stoked or what? Like,
yeah, I always am when I go back there. Yeah, absolutely pumped up for it, and just meet lots of interesting people and see interesting places. And it's different from Tokyo. It's the complete opposite. You know, there's space everywhere. There's there's not many people, whereas here it's the complete opposite.
when I went to England in 2012, I thought it was very interesting because everyone's speaking English, but they're speaking English very differently from myself, who is Canadian.
Well, I have that in the States too,
So
because
like,
accents change there too.
accents change, but also mannerisms. So what do you think about like the daily interactions between Americans?
I mean, I lived in Georgia for a year, in Atlanta, back in '94, and that was kind of fun because everyone speaks very slowly down there. They got that southern drawl, and it's kind of very drawn out.
Y'all doing all right over there?
Kind of thing. It's kind of, oh, yeah, you know what I'm saying, and
Y'all doing all right?
kind of like that. And yet out west, it's different. It's
Hey,
different
man,
again.
I live
Yeah, it's
near
kind of
the
a
ocean.
Colorado's kind of a little bit laid back and a bit hippified.
Yeah,
Places like Boulder, Denver,
Yeah.
Aspen,
Yeah.
and the like. And then, it's just everywhere is different. People are usually friendly. I've never had any trouble in the States. People are fascinated by my accent. They're fascinated by where I come from. Fascinated by what I do. And
Do you find that you learn almost everything about an American within the first 10 minutes of meeting them? Like they're just like, nice
their
to
life
meet
story.
you. Here's my life story. To make a long story short, I was born in, and they just go off on a
tangent.
Yeah, and that's why I had my second heart attack, which is where I met my third wife. And so that's why I'm here.
It's the complete
'cause we're
opposite
going
of
to a
Japan.
wedding.
It's the complete opposite.
I
because
know.
Here, no one talks to you at all.
No.
You'll know nothing.
Yeah, you can learn more from an American in 10 minutes about their personal life than a Japanese person in 30 years.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I don't really have any close Japanese friends here, and I've been here for sort of over 30 years on and off.
Yeah.
But, I go to the States and I can make a friend in a day. It's crazy,
It's a weird trade-off. Yeah.
It is. It's just different, and you accept that. There's good and bad about everywhere. I mean, there are things in the States I don't like as well as things that I love. And I get that in England as well. There are things I love and the things I hate. And there's the same here.
Yeah. I think once you get a bit older, you're like, the good things about the place are also the bad things. That's how I view the world. It's, you live in Tokyo, you must have a horrible commute. Commutes are horrible, period. Doesn't matter where you are.
Right.
Nobody likes their commute. It's the worst part of the day. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's just different. I mean, I've been here so long, on and off, that it's you get used to not interacting with people, but at the same time you get lonely. It can be like, Tokyo's like, I don't know, 30, 35 million people living here, and I, hardly know any of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I go to the States, I can go to a small town in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, and suddenly I'll know 2 people within a day.
Yeah.
So,
hey, where are you going?
Yeah. Yeah, you ain't from around these parts.
When I was in Hawaii, I would just like be walking across a parking lot, and like someone would just be like, "Hey, you need a ride?" I'm like, "This is what I was told in childhood to avoid." No, I don't need a ride.
Don't talk to strangers.
Yeah,
but,
even though there's no way you could rape me, I'm still saying no.
Yeah. But every time I go to America, I'll talk to anyone.
Yeah,
So.
It's hilarious.
So yeah, it's just different things, different strokes for different folks, and
how about this? Completely different idea.
right.
Completely different idea. I feel like I am a satellite compared to my culture, where I've launched off from my home country and I'm living in Japan, and I'm developing in my own way, which is completely separate from how my friends and family are developing back home. And I see where like the culture turns as a tide, and I'm sure they mostly don't. They're mostly operating within the minutiae of the day. So do you feel like yourself is like you're developing apart from your culture?
I've already done that and been through that.
Yeah. What? How would you
Yeah, I
summarize that?
God, that's a difficult one, isn't it? But it's things changed a lot. I left a long time ago, so I still visit the UK and keep in touch with people there and watch things online that's going on. So I know what's going on there. But because I'm not there every day, I'm not going to know everything and see the small changes that take place over a period of time.
Like the small store that closes or something.
Yeah, for me, it's more government policies that have prevented me from going back with the Conservative government that we've got at the moment. I can't go back with my spouse because I don't earn enough money. Therefore, I can't go back.
But they'll accept like 500 jihadis.
But that's different. I don't know about that. But I mean, just as far as my personal story is concerned,
Sure, yeah.
I'm not allowed to go back with my wife. So that's kind of the first thing that it's more in principle that pisses me off, upsets me. And then we had the Brexit vote last year, or the year before last, when it came back. You know that we would be leaving Europe, which I think was well, I'm just a Remainer, so I'm going to say that it was a silly decision. But that's just my opinion.
Sure.
But it made things difficult for me to go to Europe because if it didn't settle back in the UK, I could have settled in Europe. But now Brexit's now made that almost impossible for me. So with my government giving me so much grief over the last few years, I kind of turned my back on my own country of origin, which is why I spend a lot more time here and in the States rather than going home.
So it's a bizarre thing that like you would never assume that when you came here. Like I never assumed that I would be in Japan for 12 years, but
you don't when you first come because you're young and everything's fresh and different.
Yeah.
But time has a habit of catching up with you later, and then suddenly you think, "Oh, I've been here a long time.
been here a long
Or I've been doing this a
time,
long time, or that a long time, or."
And I came here to focus on something, and
Yeah.
then you look back at your own culture over a period of even like a decade or so. And you're
Oh
like,
yeah. Well, the thing is, you're outside your country now. So what happens is they move on and change, and you're in a different location. You move on and change in your way. But when you go back, that compatibility is not always there because you've had different experiences.
Yeah.
So you'll see it differently. Oh God, that's changed. I don't like that. That's really not what I remember at all. And then people might look at you and think, well, he's not very Canadian or American or British or, and think, well, I've been away too long as well.
Yeah, and you have to accept yourself because otherwise you're a loser. Otherwise, it's like if you're over here and you're like, oh, why am I so different? You go back because you can. Anyone can go back. Your wife, maybe you're more entrenched than I am. Being Canadian, I could probably I could marry and move back a lot more easily. But this whole idea.
It's different. They've closed their door in the UK on pretty much everyone, including their own citizens, which is kind of rude. I just think it's wrong.
Yeah.
So I'm just staying away until I don't even know if things will ever change.
It's kind of weird because in Japan it was considered to be a very close-minded place 10 years ago. Oh, they don't let people in, but now it's like, oh no, just get a visa and come over. And
short term, yeah. Long term, no.
Long term,
they don't.
no.
They don't welcome people here long term, but short term is fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just
all
the way
right.
it is.
Just an idea, something I'm going through at the moment, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
You'll go through phases. Everyone does.
Yeah, and it's because sometimes I feel like what I'm doing in Japan is what I was doing back home, and I'm continuing what
Some of it, like music and stuff.
Yeah.
But
But then, like, you go
parameters
back
are different.
home, and then, like, all of the friends you had that were doing that same thing, or the colleagues you had that were
They've
doing
moved
the
on.
same thing, they've gone with the tide of the culture.
Yeah.
Whether they are conservative or liberal or not, the culture itself moves in a different direction, and you disagree and agree on where that direction is at that time.
Yeah.
But we're like, for me, I'm still in like Canada 2006.
Yeah.
Because I haven't really gone back a lot since then.
Yeah.
It's-
Mine would be 2012 for the UK because I went back for a few months then. But it was hard and it was difficult, and it was just I just couldn't fit in. I felt like a fish out of water.
That's very interesting.
And I think the longer you're away, the worse it gets. So
the more individual you become, but like then you're like we can never become Japanese.
No,
if you're
never.
an American, you can become an American and lickety split.
Anyone can be American.
Just be
That's
like,
what I like about it, I guess.
Me too. It's awesome. It's fantastic. The true American, the guy, you know, driving a BMW at 100 miles an hour to get on his horse, get a shotgun and go rifle practicing.
Yeah.
And just saying like freedom, man. It's like, whoa, I want to be that guy's friend any day of the week. Of course I want to hang out with that guy. He's like, yeah, we're going to get some beers and I'm going to grill you a steak. I'm like, whoa, hey, this idea is cool.
That's what I like. So it's some things are cultural. Yeah, I mean, my parents live in the US. They live in Florida, so I go and visit them and have a good time down there. My sister lives in Florida as well, with my brother-in-law and son-in-law. So it's yeah.
But then there's also this other aspect where you're European and Europeans are explorers, and I'm from Europe, from Norway, and then from Canada. We're also explorers. So are we also just carrying on this other strange tradition? I don't know.
I think the modern world, people can move around the world at will almost. We didn't have this technology to fly somewhere and just move on a whim like you could do now. So it's very different.
Yeah. All right. Let's end the podcast. We've been doing this for about an hour and 15 minutes.
It's been very good. I enjoyed it. We've got a lot in.
Yeah, I think so. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Where can people find you?
If you want to look for BlipPilot, you can find me on Facebook and YouTube and CD Baby and iTunes Store and Napster and everywhere else.
Everywhere else.
Yeah, so just give us a listen and shoot us a line. Always keen to hear people's opinions, and if people enjoy what I do, I like that, and that's great.
All right.
Life's too short not to enjoy yourself, so get out there and do it.
Life's too short not to enjoy music, even though we were kind of griping about it. I'll leave with this. I was reading some George Orwell the other day, and even in the 1930s, the poets were complaining about the amount of money that gets spent on advertising instead of the amount of money that gets spent on poetry. So that's the way it goes.
Some things haven't changed. The arts have kind of been starved of finances and support, I think, over the last few decades. We need to get back to that again, because a good culture has good art.
Yeah, well, that's why these conversations for me are actually very useful, because I can meet people in totally different areas of music, and we can kind of talk about what's going on in our brains, and then hopefully people will, check out the music. So click on the links, folks.
Enjoy. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And good night.
Thank you for listening to the podcast, and hope to see you next time. Until then, look at your toe jam, my friends. Don't hesitate to tell other people to look at their toe jam either, and say, hey, you, over there. Sounds like it's been a while since you looked at your toe jam. Know what I'm saying? And they'll be like, what? What? You're just being weird. And you're like, yeah, I know I'm being weird. It's 2018, buddy. And you know you haven't looked at your toe jam, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And they will look down in shame, and they will pee their pants. And the pee will dribble out onto their foot, and the pee will enter between their toes. And that's where they know the toe jam is.
アイドホのことは知らないけどアイドホポテトは食べるよみんな食べるからねアイドホ行ったら国立公園で月のクレーター見るんだみんな見てるからねボイジの近くで何か食べに行こうみんな食べるからねみんな食べるからねホーチミンで会った女の子名前はセブンお気に入りの筋は11 僕はいい気分セブンイレブンいい気分ちゃんビールちゃんビールタイのちゃんビールちゃんと酔っ払ったよみんな酔っ払おうからねそれであゆたや雪のチケット買って歩き回っても酔っ払ってたよみんな見てたけどねメコン川沿いに立って歴史の長さに感動だみんな気にしないけどねみんな気にしないけどねホーチミンで会った女の子名前はセブンお気に入りの筋は11僕はいい気分セブンイレブンいい気分僕の目をまっすぐ見て南に行こう南に行こう僕の目をまっすぐ見て国境の南に行こう国境の南に行こうみんないないところはいいねビゲローと同じビゲロー晩の宇宙バンガローに一部屋プリーズみんな行きたいでしょプロショの宇宙飛行士とスペースウォーカーパーティーだみんな飲みたいでしょ若者って物質で地球を見たら地図で見たのと全然違うよみんなびっくりだよねねみんなびっ